Okay, it says that it's recording, so hopefully we're recording. This is Amy again, Hufflepuff admin for Hogwarts House Habits. I also did the read-along for Prisoner of Azkaban, the video of the first chapter a little bit. This week we are starting Goblet of Fire, and I promise that I am going to get those read-along questions up soon. It's just been a bit of a crazy weekend with Easter and working on other things this weekend. I'm also reading another book, so that's sort of been a thing. But yes, so we're starting the Goblet of Fire. It is going to be one of our longer books to read. I think that the rest of them are all going to be pretty long. But so this one's going to take us a little bit longer than a month. Let's see, we usually talk about like the books themselves and our memories with it. I'm just going to check the inbox really quick, see if anybody sent any asks in the last couple of minutes about it. And we got a couple of new asks, but nothing about the video. So I guess that is where we are right now. Okay, minimize that. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the Goblet of Fire came out between 6th and 7th grade for me. You've all already seen my post about reading the first book in 6th grade. So first, second, and probably third, I think were all already out at that time. I don't quite remember. I was in 6th grade in like 2000-ish. But I'm pretty sure that this one came out over the summer. This is my original copy. You can kind of see it has seen some better days. It is very, very used and very well loved, especially because if I'm remembering correctly, between the 4th and 5th book, there was like a huge gap of time between the two books coming out. So like I was rereading the first 4 books a lot of times, being like, what's gonna happen now? Oh my gosh. Let's see. You can see it's starting to, the spine is starting to be broken. I'm gonna show some inside things. I talked about it, I think, with Chamber of Secrets. I did a post that in middle school, like early mid-middle school, is when I don't know if everybody does this, but I did this. I changed my handwriting a lot. Bless you. I don't know if the camera picked up on that. My cats are outside on the porch with me again, so maybe you'll see them again. But I would change my handwriting, and anytime I did, I would have to like re-sign my books and redo that, especially like the books that I read a lot, so specifically Harry Potter. So you can see I covered up my last name because I love you guys, but I don't love you that much. But you can see that I've got my name there in some weird handwriting. Here's 2 more. This book is property of Amy M. If found, please return. I put my name on the dust cover. And then I started to, I can't tell what's, okay. I started to kind of highlight the Harry Potter thing, make it pretty colors, and then I was doing a terrible job, so I was like, I messed it up. I've got my name 3 more times there, so I don't know, guys, whose book could this possibly be? I remember getting this book because I begged my mom to go to the midnight release because Harry Potter was getting so big at this point that I was afraid that that I wouldn't be able to get a copy. So we went to, I think the store was called Media Play. That's really dating it because that store closed down. It had to be the end of my middle school days, so like 20, no, that would not be middle school, 15 years ago. But yeah, and then I was expecting there to be lines because, I mean, everywhere else in the world, there were, like, lines out the door, people were dressed up. We were the only ones there, but we did get stickers, so you can see that I put the stickers in the book. There is one more that I put through my name, but again, I'm not showing my name on the internet for anyone. And then if you remember me talking about my Chamber of Secrets book, I read that Nancy Drew book also in middle school about the having the thing in your book that book collectors do, because I'm a book collector, I get books. So again, the page 9 is filled in, because that was it, and I think, and I did something else that I found when I was looking to see what else I did in this book. I've got a little, like, star on the inside cover. I don't know what that was, if I was doing that too, but yeah. My other memory of this specific book is in 7th, so it had to be the summer between 6th and 7th grade. One of the first things that we did in 7th grade is we had a book report, and we had at least 4 students do the Harry Potter books. We had somebody do Sorcerer's Stone, we had somebody do Chamber of Secrets, we had somebody do Prisoner of Azkaban. Sorry, I can see my cat out of the corner of my eye, and he's being cute. He's sitting in the chair across from me. This is going to be an interview. Anyway, but I did Chamber of Secret, or Goblet. I did Goblet of Fire for this book report, and no one still knew how to pronounce Hermione's name, because it was only in the book. It was not a name that, like, people were familiar with, and I was the only one that I think knew, because why do I keep saying Chamber of Secrets? Goblet of Fire is the one where J.K. Rowling had Crumb be like Hermione, with her teaching him how to say it. So everyone else was kind of like Hermione, and I was too shy to speak up and be like, guys, I think it's Hermione. But I remember thinking it really hard. But yes, my other memory is the first chapter of this I thought was really boring, and I was like, where's Harry? So, I don't know how much I will read of the first chapter, just enough to kind of like get you guys going, and I'm going to check just one more time just to see if there's any other asks, because I've rambled now for 5 minutes, and it's thinking so hard. Alright, so no asks, so I will get started. Chapter 1, The Riddle House. There's the picture. The villagers of Little Hangleton still called it the Riddle House, even though it had been many years since the Riddle family had lived there. It stood on a hill overlooking the village, some of its windows boarded, tiles missing from its roof, and ivy spreading unchecked over its face. Once a fine-looking manor, and easily the largest and grandest building for miles around, the Riddle House was now damp, derelict, and unoccupied. The Little Hangletons all agreed that the old house was creepy. Half a century ago, something strange and horrible had happened there, something that the older inhabitants of the village still liked to discuss when topics for gossip were scarce. The story had been picked over so many times and had been embroidered in so many places that nobody was quite sure what the truth was anymore. Every version of the tale, however, started in the same place. 50 years before, at daybreak on a fine summer's morning, when the Riddle House had still been well kept and impressive, a maid had entered the drawing room to find all 3 riddles dead. I feel like I'm not in focus. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm not. The maid had run screaming down the hill into the village and roused as many people as she could. Lying there, with their eyes wide open, cold as ice, still in their dinner things. The police were summoned, and the whole of Little Hangleton had seethed with shocked curiosity and ill-disguised excitement. Nobody wasted their breath pretending to feel very sad about the riddles, for they had been most unpopular. Elderly Mr. and Mrs. Riddle had been rich, snobbish, and rude, and their grown-up son, Tom, had been, if anything, worse. All the villagers cared about was the identity of their murderer, for plainly 3 apparently healthy people did not all drop dead of natural causes on the same night. The Hanged Man, the village pub, did a roaring trade that night. The whole village seemed to have turned out to discuss the murders. They were rewarded for leaving their firesides when the riddles cook arrived dramatically in their midst and announced to the suddenly silent pub that a man called Frank Bryce had just been arrested. "Frank!" cried several people. "Never!" Frank Bryce was the Riddle's gardener. He lived alone in a run-down cottage on the grounds of the Riddle House. Frank had come back from the war with a very stiff leg and a great dislike of crowds and loud noises, and had been working for the Riddles ever since. There was a rush to buy the cook drinks and hear more details. Always thought he was odd, she told the eagerly listening villagers after her fourth sherry. Unfriendly like. I'm sure if I'm offered him a cuppa once, I've offered it 100 times. Never wanted to mix, he didn't. Ah, now, said a woman at the bar. He had a hard war, Frank. He liked the quiet life. That's no reason to. Who else had a key to the back door then? Barked the cook. There's been a spare key hanging in the gardener's cottage far back as I can remember. Nobody forced the door last night. No broken windows. All Frank had to do was creep up to the big house while we was all sleeping. The villagers exchanged dark looks. I always thought he had a nasty look about him, right enough, grunted a man at the bar. War turned him funny, if you ask me, said the landlord. Told you I wouldn't like to get on the wrong side of Frank, didn't I, Dot? Said an excited woman in the corner. Horrible temper, said Dot, nodding fervently. I remember when he was a kid. By the following morning, hardly anyone in Little Hangleton doubted that Frank Bryce had killed the Riddles. But over in the neighboring town of Great Hangleton, in the dark and dingy police station, Frank was stubbornly repeating again and again that he was innocent, and that the only person he had seen near the house on the day of the Riddles' deaths had been a teenage boy, a stranger, dark-haired and pale. Nobody else in the village had seen any such boy, and the police were quite sure that Frank had invented him. Then, just when things were looking very serious for Frank, the report on the Riddles' bodies came back and changed everything. The police had never read an auto report. A team of doctors had examined the bodies and had concluded that none of the Riddles had been poisoned, stabbed, shot, strangled, suffocated, or, as far as they could tell, harmed at all. In fact, the report continued in a tone of unmistakable bewilderment, the Riddles all appeared to be in perfect health, apart from the fact that they were all dead. The doctors did note, as though determined to find something wrong with the bodies, that each of the Riddles had a look of terror upon his or her face. But, as the frustrated police said, whoever had heard of 3 people being frightened to death? As there was no proof that the Riddles had been murdered at all, the police were forced to let Frank go. The Riddles were buried in the Little Hangleton churchyard, and their graves remained objects of curiosity for a while. To everyone's surprise, and amid a cloud of suspicion, Frank Bryce returned to his cottage on the grounds of the Riddle House. As far as I'm concerned, he killed them, and I don't care what the police say, said Dot in the Hanged Man. And if he had any decency, he'd leave, knowing as how we knows he did it. But Frank did not leave. He stayed to tend the garden for the next family who lived in the Riddle House, and then the next, for neither family stayed long. Perhaps it was partly because of Frank that the new owner said there was a nasty feeling about the place, which, in the absence of inhabitants, started to fall into disrepair. So, of course, the rest of the chapter goes on of Frank meeting Voldemort, because Voldemort has, I swear I'm out of focus. Voldemort has come back to his childhood, his dad's home, not his childhood home, because he was in the orphanage. And then, of course, Harry wakes up because he's had the dream. But that's how the book starts out. Love to hear people's opinions. Love to hear people what they think of the book itself. I meant to grab my little Cedric Diggory Funko Pop, but he's all the way in the other room, and I'm outside. And yeah, I hope that I'm not totally out of focus, because I really think that I am, but I don't know if it's just me. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, send us your thoughts. Send us your things that you like. Keep live blogging. Keep following along and reading. Again, I should have the questions up tonight at some point. Just gotta get through the first few chapters and see what we want to focus on. Yeah, tell us, post and tag us. How did you, any memories that you have about the 4th book? This is obviously the first book that people don't have the illustrated copy. However, that is supposed to be coming out next year. I looked it up because I was curious. It's supposed to come out in 2019. It's going to be huge, guys. So big. But yeah, that's Goblet of Fire. It is the most Hufflepuff of books. It introduces sweet Cedric, and we're not going to cry. I mean, Cedric is introduced in the last book, but it really introduces Cedric, and we're not going to cry, right, guys? We're making a pinky promise. We're not going to cry. I'm going to cry. But yeah, we'll talk to you guys later, and really keep having fun. Keep sending us tagging us and submitting things and talking to us and doing it. We're having a lot of fun. All right.